I'm Nick Haig, and welcome to the B2B Insights podcast. Today, I'm delighted to have Shep Hyken join the B2B Insights podcast. Shep's a customer service and CX expert. He's the Chief Amazement Officer of Shepard Presentations. He's a New York Times and Wall Street Journal bestselling author and has been inducted into the National Speakers Association Hall of Fame for lifetime achievement in the speaking profession. He's world-renowned not only for his knowledge, of which we'll share today, but also his high energy. I've seen some of his magic tricks on stage as well. So I'm really looking forward to talking to him today. So let me welcome you all to Shep Hyken. Thanks for joining us today, Shep.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks for having me. Yes, I will occasionally do a magic trick on stage, but it makes sense. It's not like out of the clear blue, let me show you a card trick. It kind of ties into sometimes what I talk about. So it's great, but it's great to be here.
Well, I mean, it is just audio today, so we kind of have the pleasure of seeing a magic trick. But well, actually, it's where I was going to start because I've been admiring you from afar from the books that I've read and the podcasts I've heard, and also the your YouTube site as well. But we've got a lot of things to cover today. Namely managing customer experience in times of crisis that we sit in this current COVID-19 situation that we're in. But I'd really like to start at the beginning. And when I was doing the homework on you, then I saw that, this keenness for magic as well that came out from an early age. But I'm really interested to find out how you first came to be obsessed with customer service, because I'm here sat in Manchester, UK, and speaking to you in the US. And I know customer service was obviously invented in the United States, but you were definitely ahead of the game in starting your company way back in 1983. So I'm just interested to understand, back in those early days, how you got into the customer service line of business so early on.
Sure. Back in the early days. 83 makes me sound so old, doesn't it? Yeah, I've been doing this for almost like 37 years now. It's amazing. So just a couple of thoughts. What really got me excited about customer service was, well, first I want to say that I don't know if customer service was invented in the U.S. But the first books I ever read about it were in English, so maybe it could have been the UK. I don't know, but no. And the companies that were famous way back in the 80s were like IBM. They were winning awards, and there were several books that were out. But let's go all the way back to even 10 years before that, when I was just a teenager, about 12, 13 years old, and I was doing magic shows, which is why occasionally I'll do a trick. And my parents, after I finished my first paid magic gig at 12 years old, I did a birthday party show. My mom made me write a thank you note. My dad told me to call the parents a week later and make sure I did a good job and find out what tricks they liked and was there anything I could do better, and then learn from that and make the show better, which is called showing appreciation to your customers, getting feedback, and making process improvement. And little did I know that today, the largest companies in the world, this is what they do. If they're really good, their customers appreciate that that the company appreciates them. And, they're, just simple thank you sometimes. Sometimes it's the way we handle ourselves. But then when we get feedback, we don't just listen to it. We do something with it. And that's where it all started. So even from a young age, I was learning about customer service, not even knowing that that's what it was. Let's jump to a couple of years, 3 years later. I'm working at a gas station. That was one of my summer jobs. And actually, I worked for this company throughout high school and college, on and off. But I was at a gas station on the coldest day of the year. It was record-breaking cold. And we were a self-serve gas station, which meant people got out of the car and pumped their own gas. An elderly woman pulls up to the gas tanks and goes to get out. And I notice her. I've seen her before. And I walk out of the building where I was nice and warm. And I said, ma'am, stay in the car. I'll take care of pumping your gas today. And it was just, didn't want her to slip on the ice. I didn't want her to be cold. I wanted her to be comfortable. I go back and my manager says, what did you just do? And I'm thinking, well, this is a trick question. I pumped gas into a car. And he goes, we're a self-service gas station. And I thought it was another trick question. I go, yeah, I know. And then I said, that woman is like 90 years old. She's been here before. I've talked to her. I just thought it would be the nice thing to do. Well, now she's going to expect it every time. And I go, well, I think that'd be nice if she comes to us every time rather than goes across the street to that station or the one on the opposite corner. And he just didn't get it. And by the way, I just wrote an article about how sometimes a manager or a leader can kill the customer service buzz. And that's a
Yeah.
perfect example of it. I wasn't sure if I should ever do that again, but you know what? I knew I was right, and I did do it again. So, but I've always been intrigued and loved taking care of people. So we get to 1983. I start my business. I start researching. I'm reading books. I decide I want to talk about it and write about it. And Ron Zimke and Carl Albrecht and Tom Peters, another gentleman who wrote an article, but his book didn't come out for a few years, was Jan Carlson. So I read all these
Yeah.
books. I devoured them and just learned everything I could. And that's where it all started for me.
But I think, and you're right. I love to read. I soak myself in all the various different literature and books and whatever's online. But actually, going back to your first example, it comes naturally to some people, and it doesn't come back naturally to your gas station manager. I was thinking, why the hell are you doing this, Shep? You're wasting time. She's expecting it. So I think you can learn it, you can soak it up from others, but you need to believe in it, don't you? And I think it comes from within.
Yeah, there's definitely a personality that wants to please. I know there's a personality for virtually every job there is. I can't stand being in the file room filing. To me, that's tedious. It's boring. It drives me crazy. My wife, on the other hand, she'll come in and she'll see a stack of files and she'll say, "Can I file that?" And and I go, "Why do you like to do that?" She goes, "Oh, I don't know. I just love to see the progress. As the file, as the stack gets shorter and shorter, she gets happier and happier, and me, the
Do you know
stack gets
what?
shorter and shorter. I get more frustrated and more frustrated." So
It may just be a gender thing because I know my wife is very much like that, and she loves to organize. Whereas I that would be the last thing that I could do.
well, I
So
mean,
maybe,
it could be gender thing, but it also, I think it's like if I put her on the front line. Now she's better today than she used to be, but if I put her on the front line talking to my customers, she's afraid to talk weak. I believe there is a job that there is a personality to fit that job. Even if you don't think there is, you will find somebody that loves to do things that you don't necessarily love to do. And I think that's the same thing in service. There's people that love to take care of complaining customers and solve issues, where others, it's like at the end of that day, it's like I want to beat myself up. I've been, abused throughout the day, where
yeah.
others, they revel in that. And so, um, I don't know if I could sit in a call center and 8 hours a day deal with complaints and angry customers. But I do know as a manager or a leader, I could help motivate people and help them understand on how to properly do it.
Yeah.
Sure, I can handle. I mean, I would think in long term I could probably do anything if I put my mind to it. But there's things that I love to do. And by the way, that's another thing. Sidebar. This is the way I like to do business. I love being an entrepreneur. I love, it's like, oh, you get up when you want to get up and you go to bed or you work as late as you want. Well, you know what I do? I get up and I'm in my office by 5:45, 6 a.m. Not be, I love doing it, but also because I have to do it. And a lot of people wouldn't want that. I take the chance of not getting paid for 2 or 3 months if we have a dry spell, where
Yeah.
other people would freak out if they didn't get their paycheck every 2 weeks. So we all have choices and things we love to do. And I guess that's what I'm trying to say is that, I love the whole customer service experience world. I love seeing systems put into place and companies improve as a result of those systems.
Yeah. I love your title, Chief Amazement Officer. In fact, I don't think I've met a few different titles along the way, but I don't think I've ever met a Chief Amazement Officer. So, and this definitely aligns with one of your books, Be Amazing or Go Home. but, bringing it back to business, and in the world of B2B, that sometimes, we think is a bit staid and boring compared to the consumer world. But do you think it's possible to amaze customers like it is in the consumer world in a B2B world?
100%. I think it's even more important to do so in the B2B world. First of all, I love fun titles. I have a director of reputation who works with us, manager of detail assistant. Um, and we used to have a manager of many things. She did everything. That was what it said on her business card. And we now have Jeslyn, who's been with us since the beginning of the year. And we're trying to figure out. I said, you really need to think about what title you want, because once I put it on your business card, you're stuck with it till you get a promotion. and but I let people choose their own titles. So you can do that in any type of business. But why is it more important in B2B? It's simple. If I'm a consumer and I walk into a large shopping mall, there's 10 places I might go to get the same shoes, shirt, pants, whatever.
Yeah,
And by the way, if I don't like this mall, there's 20 other malls in the area that I can go to. Many times in B2B, the number of people that supply their customers is far smaller than the number of stores there are to supply consumers. On top
yeah,
of it, the number of consumers is far, far greater than the number of customers that might buy my product in a B2B environment. I may be, if I make, for example, I've worked with a number of different companies that manufacture the engines that go on jets. I've worked with, Boeing. I've worked with Pratt Whitney. I've worked, GE. So all these companies, there's just a finite number of customers that they can sell to. How many people are going to buy a gigantic engine to put on an airplane, right? So
yeah,
when you think about it, if you lose that customer, it could time before you ever have a chance of getting them back. And there could be a number of reasons you lose them to them. And I recognize in B2B, there's often a financial consideration that maybe even more so than in the B2C. But I do believe the relationship plays a key part. I've done a lot of work with government groups and working with companies that sell to government groups, which to me is like B2B. Uh,
yeah,
but what makes that relationship important is that oftentimes the proposals that are put out are modeled by the vendor, not by the customer. So if you've got a great relationship with your customer, the customer will ask you to create a proposal so that they can send it out to other people. And who has the inside, track on this? The company that's already there, that's got such a great relationship that they help create that proposal. And by the way, this way, it's like, Shep, we want to have X number of this, and we like the way you make it. So you need to spec that out, and we're going to be sharing this with your competitors so they can bid on this as well. But hey, I've got the inside track. I'm the one that invented the process. I'm the one that's been taking care of them for the last, however long. And I think that's where that relationship it pays off. So it's not just black and white numbers. It's a relationship you have. It's proof that you want to be their partner, not just their vendor.
yeah. No, so true. And I mean, we see it day to day as well. But I mean, we're not doing business with GE or Boeing. We're doing business with a person, aren't we? And it is that people factor that really does come through. And that's how, whether you're doing something over and beyond, or whether you're saving a situation where, logistically, you're not delivering on time or something like that. That's where that person to person relationship can really build that strength and hopefully, build some wow into the what you can do
Yeah.
over and above the regular.
I mean, we see it all the time where the low bidder doesn't get the business because the client will say, "We've done business with them before. We trust them. We know what we're getting." That I always love to talk about how when you're referred to as a company that always does something, that's consistency and predictable. That word always,
Yeah,
and when it's followed by something positive, you know what? They always get back to us quickly. They always deliver on time. Even when there's a problem, I know I can always count on them.
yeah,
I have my person that always takes care of me. So, and those relationships allow sometimes mistakes to be forgiven because of how they're handled and the trust that's built when there is an issue, because nobody's perfect. There's going to be a company that misses a delivery. You know, something comes in the wrong way. There's so many different things that could go wrong. But when you have a relationship and you trust that even when there's a problem, they'll take care of me, there's a lot to be said. That's what IBM, we mentioned them at the very beginning. They were one of the companies that I studied in the 1980s because there was a professor, his name was Lou Stearns at the Kellogg Business School. He worked for IBM. I'm not sure if he was a consultant or if he was a full-time employee, but he was involved in rolling out the reasons that people would want to buy an IBM computer. This was back when IBM was truly a computer company. And they made a list. He made a list with his team of 20 reasons someone would buy an IBM computer, price being one of them, the service, response time, you know, there were all these different value type reasons that people would want to buy. There were 20 of them. And he said, my goal is to push price as far down on that list as 20 as possible. And I believe he said it was number 16 out of 20, which means there were 15 reasons that were more important than price that somebody would want to buy this computer.
Yeah.
I would say they were doing a pretty good job of making price very much, well, not irrelevant, but less relevant, and doing things that would create an experience that would make you want to buy way beyond a black and white bid of a price.
Yeah. And I think, you know, when I throw out the question, maybe in a workshop, and I say to respondents, you know, name some companies that you think deliver world-class customer experience. It's always from the Amazons or the Apples of this world. Even, you know, the likes of McDonald's get thrown in there sometimes. But what it is it's down to that consistency. And I think sometimes in a B2B world, it's that consistency that can't always be delivered against. And that's where, you know, but there's these other dynamics that kick in.
Yeah, people want to do business with people and companies they know, like, and trust. The knowing and liking is easy because you can like my personality, and the knowing me might come from marketing. But the trust is hard, and trust comes from ongoing, consistent, and predictable experiences that ideally the customer likes, and that's why they continue to do business with them. So
Yeah.
building that trust takes a little bit of time.
I love a lot of the quotes that you put out there, and the simplicity of this particular one. The purpose of every business and organization is to get and keep customers. I mean, that's just common sense, isn't it? It's
Yeah. And by the way,
you know,
that's not my quote. That's
no,
Dr. Ted Levitt, senior professor at Harvard Business School. But that's brilliant, isn't it?
I mean, it's brilliant in its simplicity, but it's like businesses don't get that. I mean, and you know, so obviously, if your customers get a great service, they'll become more loyal, they'll come back, they'll spend more, they'll advocate the company brand. You'll grow the customer base that way. I know that's the whole premise of what Fred Reichhold put together for his, you know, ubiquitous NPS metric that's used everywhere. But why do you think B2B companies do struggle so much in making that investment, therefore, to deliver world-class customer experience? You know, sometimes customers are seen as a pain or a hindrance to, I can't get my job done because I've got people complaining.
You know, it's really interesting that you bring that point up. I take a look at all my clients, and I've had the good fortune of working with hundreds and hundreds over the years, probably thousands. Um, I'm hired maybe one time to do a 1 hour speech, and sometimes I'm hired to do ongoing projects that take a year to 2 years. What's fascinating to me, if I had to put a number to it, it's about 18%. 82% of the companies that hire us are already rock stars in my mind. They're already doing it right or trying to do it right. And what they're trying to do is stay on top or get a little bit better and tweak it and just make people constantly remember it. And then about 18%, maybe a little bit less, are the ones that say, we need help. and I'm amazed at the number of companies that say, we need help. We want to hire you for a 1 hour speech, and we think it's going to change our whole culture. They actually do that. Okay.
Yeah.
And then there's companies that say, we need help. We want you to kick off with a 1 hour speech, and then we need a year's worth of training and culture development and journey mapping, et cetera, et cetera. And I love those projects. And by the way, and I love the long-term projects. There's plenty of manufacturers out there that we're doing training for, that we, you know, I'm really just loving to watch that they're trying to create this this culture as well as the way they deliver the service. So it's not everybody. But to your point, why is it the simplicity of it? Let's get and keep our customers. Getting is marketing. And throughout the getting, there is an element of service that's created. Anytime a company or a person, a customer interacts with any part of our company, it's part of the experience. If it's in the sales process, it doesn't matter. If it's in the marketing process, which actually comes even before the sales process, often, then it's still, they're interacting. They're on our website. They're learning about us. We're making it easy for them to get information. I look at websites. The other day, somebody said, I'd really love to talk to you. Check out my website. And I did. I wanted to call the guy. I couldn't find his phone number. Okay. It's like, how could you not have a phone number on there? And there's a form that I could fill out. Well, I want to talk to him now. I don't want to wait, 3 hours, 3 days, who knows what, for somebody to call me back. You mentioned Amazon, which owns Zappos. Zappos is an online, just like Amazon is an online retailer, except there's a phone number on every single page of a Zappos website, so you can call and ask somebody a question. And I believe it's close to 20% of the purchases that are made, or their customers have actually called Zappos at one time or another. That's very high for a company that claims to be a digital retailer.
I mean, it beggars belief to me that, in this way that we do business today, an email is still a big part of that, that people don't put on their signatures the contact phone number as well. And I'm searching around trying to find the contact details. It's painful.
Someone the other day emailed me, do you have time to talk tomorrow? And I said, yes, but in order to do that, I'll have to have your phone number.
Yeah.
Haven't heard back from him yet, because that's the other thing. How long is a reasonable period of time to wait for an email response?
Yeah.
So standards need to be put in place. I'm going to go down what do they call it? A squirrel. Go down a rabbit hole on this one. So one of the exercises that we suggest our clients do, B2B, B2C, it doesn't matter. In small departments, if it's a small business, you can do it as an entire company. If it's a large business, you do it by department. We call it the moments of magic exercise. And a moment of magic is a positive experience, either for an internal or external customer, a fellow employee, or someone who does business with you. And you just simply take maybe a minute to 2 minutes, take an index card, and write down an example of when you created a positive experience for either a colleague or an outside customer. That's it. And we do this for a reason. It creates service awareness. People start to recognize when they're going to do this. Well, what we find is, as people start, gosh, where was I going with this? I'm going to tell you the benefit of the exercise is that people do this on a regular basis. They start to recognize that they're delivering service ongoing. And this is really cool, because people who don't even think they're involved in customer service realize, wow, for people all the time.
Yeah.
And I say nice. It could be, oh, I know where I was going. Returning a phone call quickly, or returning an email. So there was a woman in our office who, when she first came to work here, she said, okay, this whole moment of magic thing, I got to do this every week. And she recognized where her strength was. Her superpower was in response time.
Right.
And so she was great. She was my assistant. If anybody called, her moment of magic that week, somebody called, I called them back in 6 minutes. They were blown away. Somebody emailed me while I was at lunch, and I got back to them like 45 minutes later. They were blown away. And I started to see this pattern of, why were customers happy with her? Because she responded quickly. So we didn't have a formal response time. Well, now we do. We have, when somebody calls and leaves a message, now obviously if it's in the middle of the night or on the weekend, they're going to hear back from us the very next business day. Yeah. But they're not going to hear back from us at the end of that business day. It's first part of the morning. And so we have a very definitive set of timelines on how quickly we respond to phone calls, emails, or any other. We try to monitor social media every single day, so we'll always respond social media-wise, ideally the same day.
It's quite a nice segue actually into this next question. And by the way, communication, when we're carrying out our customer experience research, a big part of that is communication. You've had a problem, you've had a query, you've put that in, you might be in a waiting list, and just get back to them. That's they say, we're looking at it, we understand it, and we might not be able to solve it, but just that communication piece is massive. And one of our earlier podcasts actually was about what makes a CX leader. We've done some research, which was the foundation to my book, The Six Pillars of Customer Experience. They were that we found from our research: commitment, fulfillment, responsiveness, evolution, seamlessness, and proactivity. And we've tracked this through research over the last 5 years. And what's amazing that we've found is that companies are stalling in their quest to deliver, world-class customer experience. And in fact, companies are struggling more than ever today with the likes of responsiveness and also evolution. Making can they evolve the program that they've got in place within their company. With everything that we've got to hand these days, we're speaking right now digitally in different times as well. Why do you think responsiveness for one would be something that's struggling? Have you got a
I
view
have
on that,
no
Shep?
idea. That's what's frustrating to me because that's such an easy one to put into place. People
Yeah,
are busy, they're maxed out, don't have time to call somebody back. You don't have time to call the customer that's going to pay you money, that's going to sign a contract for, you know, X number of years to use your equipment, to have you I mean, how could you not have time to make,
yeah,
to make that worthwhile? I have no idea. I'm that's a very simple question. I thought you were going somewhere completely different with this, but that's good. I will say in 2015 we started to see all this research coming out that customer experience by 2020 was going to be more important than anything, more important than price, and you know what? It's pretty much come true, but I don't believe companies. I would venture to say that every company, even the ones that are struggling that I work with, have made an effort to improve. But the
yeah,
reason I believe it's not enough is the customers' expectations are higher than ever before.
yeah,
They they know what good experience is. They see it on TV. They experience it on the consumer side. And by the way, what's happened is the customer now compares whatever company they're dealing with, B2B or B2C, with the best service they've had from any type of company. And you've already mentioned Amazon, Apple. We talked about Zappos. You can talk about experiences you might have at a fancy hotel or a great restaurant. Or maybe it is that B2B manufacturer. You've got this inside salesperson that just is the most amazing person that holds your relationship together. Well, those people or those companies set the level for any type of company, expect the same from the companies they do business with, or at least hope for the same.
yeah, yeah. No, exactly. Um, I mean, we've also touched on this a bit, but in terms of recent research that I saw, it was from Gartner this time, but it was on their customer experience management survey, and they were indicating that in terms of increasing number of companies are hiring for a CX role, which we deal with, and you'll have seen definitely. So the figures were in 2017. More than 35% of US organization didn't have a CXO or chief customer officer in place, whereas in late 2019, 10% only were looking to fill that role. So these people, they are looking, they do see that it's important. They're looking to recruit, to put someone, whether it's on the board or within that C-suite decision making. So this significant change in this role, if you like, this significant growth demonstrates this emphasis to be more customer centric. But it's not just about getting someone to have a
Yeah.
title and to sit on the board, is it? I mean, it's that's a very easy step to take. It's the steps that take from there. What advice would you give to large corporates looking to embed customer centricity? Obviously, first step may be get a CXO or someone like that. But
Yeah, I
what
don't
what
think you
what?
need to do that. I mean, you need to have the role of a CXO, whether you hire somebody specific for that, depending upon the kind of business. If it's a large business, a CXO or a chief customer officer, whatever you want to call them, somebody that's going to overlook the process and the data. So oftentimes you'll
Yeah,
see this role being in marketing. Sometimes you'll see it at a call center where there's a large support center. I use the word call center. That's like so 5 years ago. Okay, it's the support because it's so much more than calling. uh, but you'll see this role, as somebody oversees the customer experience from the support side. You'll see somebody in IT take on the role of customer experience, because often these experiences are data driven. Whatever the business is, somebody has to be assuming the responsibility regardless of what you call them. Now, I'm going to, again, I'm going to step away from what I would consider the CX role. And you asked something in there. Where does it start? It starts in the boardroom. It starts at the C level. It starts at a leadership level. I have a real simple 6-step process. Simple, by the way, doesn't mean easy. So here's the 6-step process in like under 60 seconds, probably under 30 seconds. Number one is leadership defines what the service vision is. This is different from the company vision, from the pillars or from the mission statements. It's a 1-sentence version of what you want everybody to experience, that everybody who works in the company can understand. All right, so now that we've got that out of the way, number 2, it's communicated all the time. Number 3, every single person in the company gets trained to what their role is. Number 4, leadership will actually be the role model. And I always like to say, treat people that you work with the way you want your customers treated. So it becomes cultural. This is the way we treat each other internally. It'll permeate to the outside. Number 5, leadership's role is to defend the culture if somebody, some department, some region is going out of alignment. And number 6, you celebrate it when it works. So that's the 6-step process. Define it, communicate it, train to it, be the role model, defend it, and celebrate it. And I had a gentleman raise his hand. I was doing an event for C-suite leaders, and I said, yes, sir, you have a question. He said, you keep saying this is a simple process. How simple is it? I go, simple does not mean easy. How many people are in your company? He said, I have 35,000 people in my company. I said, we get to do this. It'll take 4 to 6 years. Where would you like to meet so we can sign the agreement? So, but it is, for a small company that might have, it could be a small manufacturer with 100 people. It's very easy to change the culture of 100 people.
Yeah.
It takes a very short period of time. But if you've got 100,000 people, that's going to take years to do. It's going to be a difficult process, a big training process. It's going to be a lot in the hiring and managing the turnover and making sure the new people you bring in are exactly what. Training the old people into a new style, a little bit more difficult sometimes, but that's what has to be done, and it takes time.
And I think actually that when we're discussing it internally, I talked to those 6 pillars, and evolution was one of those pillars that was stalling. It was lower than back in 2015, and I think that's the thing. It's a very easy concept to grasp. We go back to Levitt's first comment. It's easy. We know what to do, but in terms of how we do it, it is difficult, and therefore, it needs investment. It needs dedication from the top. You cannot change 1 week to the next in terms of your initiative of what you're looking to deliver against. And, to get everyone on board, to get everyone to understand it, it takes time and it takes investment. And I think that's, as you well know, looking for quick, first of all, making sure that, people can feel that there's a difference being made, but those medium to long-term gains for customer experience, it's not going to come overnight.
Communicate when things are going well. Let people know. There's a client we have, they're an insurance industry. They're part of the industry, and they create these walls, and we help them create the walls. And there's these huge walls. And as people have great examples that they share with their doing this moments of magic exercise, the managers get together and choose, like every week they choose 2 or 3, and these examples go on the wall. And it's amazing, as you walk into their office building, employees are actually reading what's on their own walls. We also have a moment of innovation wall, which has to do with anything that, it's part of the improvement of a company. Innovation, not like we invented something new. It's like we tried, it's even something as simple as make that trash can bigger because we're constantly having to empty it. And the next thing, we got a bigger trash can. That's an innovation, but then there's huge, really cool ones too. So I think these are all the types of things that get companies in alignment and start. It's cultural. To me, customer experience and customer service is not a department or even a strategy. It's a philosophy and a culture.
Yeah. I'm speaking to you, Shep. It's April 2020, and we're in the midst of a global pandemic. around COVID-19, and you know, in terms of what that means. We all know you can't deliver world-class customer service all the time, but especially if you don't have an engaged workforce. And with this current pandemic that we're in, this is the new norm. Remote working, digitally connected, that's all good. But is employee engagement, do you think, therefore more important than customer experience at this current time?
I think employee engagement has always been important. I don't think is it more important now? Well, I think the reason is because people are feeling disconnected. It's important to bring them in. But an engaged workforce is feeling connected is going to create a better experience outside for the customer. And I've said this, I think I even said it earlier today. What happens on the inside of the company is felt on the outside.
Yeah,
So uh, this is really a crazy time. And before we even started our interview today, we were talking, and I mentioned that in February, March, and April, maybe it's March, April, May, 3 months. In these 3 months, we are going to accelerate our use of technology exponentially. I believe we're going to be in less than 3 months. We'll be further than we would be along in 3 years had this not happened. And it's not so
yeah,
much that new invention is here; it's the adoption of new ideas and new invention and technology. Who would have thought? I would have never thought that I would be sitting alone without my team around me when I'm here in St. Louis. But instead, we meet 3 times a day virtually. We do it face to face because of Zoom technology and video technology. And that's what's happening today. So we can stay connected, and we can stay connected with our customers. And by the way, one of the 5 thoughts that I shared in a recent article that I've been touting as I do presentations for companies today, we're doing, instead of me speaking live at events, I'm now doing them virtually. And one of those is to stay connected. And
yeah,
that means every day, when I was building my business back in the early 80s, I would pick up the phone and smile and dial and say, "Hey, this is Shep. Do you need me to speak at your event now? Or, do we need to do a customer service?" And it was like cold calling or warm calling, whatever you want to call it. I think today, more than ever, we need to be saying, okay, 10 times a day, I'm going to pick up the phone and call a customer, or I'm going to
yeah.
send a video. I love sending video emails. You know, I use a company called BombBomb, BOMB.com, BombBomb.com. And
Right.
it's just short little program. And when you send a video, the video's not in the email. It links to a place that's hosting it so it doesn't bog down a customer's email. But it's a great way of saying, hey, it's Shep. I'm not selling you anything. I'm just checking in on you. I want you to know I'm thinking about you. I would love to talk to you, find out how you guys are doing during this crazy time. And, maybe we can brainstorm ideas. Again, not about me doing business with you, but about what we could do to be better for your company, make it better for your customers. And the meter's not running. I'm here in my office. Let's talk, whatever. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
this is an opportunity to not sell, but serve. And guess what happens when you serve? Eventually you'll be able to sell.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and also when you're in the midst of a crisis, I'm reading Simon Sinek's book at the moment, so The Infinite Game.
Yes.
But we need to we need to always think this will normality will come back. Yes, we may have taken some learnings on, but it will normality will
Yeah.
return,
This too will
and
pass.
it will definitely. But but the fact that we are knee deep in it at the moment, one of my other questions was around companies looking to survive. Many clients are unsure when speaking to us about whether to continue with their customer experience projects or to put them on hold. Um, would you say, therefore, customer now than ever before when trying to speak to the customers out there?
Well, I think it's not that it's more important than ever before. It's the ability to maintain what you have and continue to meet the expectations the customers always had is more important than ever before. And here's why. Companies are looking for ways to cut costs. Some are cutting payroll by eliminating people because their businesses are essentially shut down. If you're going to
Yeah,
cut anywhere, any process, even a person, try to do it where it's not going to be recognized by the customer. Because if they see a downgrade in what they're used to, that's going to plant the bad seed in their mind for the future. And that may mean gosh, the last time I did business, even though it was in the middle of a pandemic, they took 3 weeks to get back to me. Unacceptable. I'm going to
Yeah.
just see what else is out there.
Yeah. Well, and it keeps coming back, doesn't it, to this communication. We know everyone's in this together.
Yeah.
And we know business isn't as usual, but at least, we can still communicate, inform people of where things are up to. And so there's not that nagging doubt or spiral of silence that people have that then might make them turn to someone else.
So, information goes a long way. Yesterday I was doing a virtual presentation. We opened up for Q&A, and one of the women who asked the question said, I'm called by customers all the time because with the way things are, we can't work together. Some of our shipments aren't going out as quickly as they normally go out. What do I tell my customers? I said, first of all, waiting for them to call you is the first mistake. Okay.
Yeah.
Calling them proactively and promising them you will check with them every, I don't know, 3 days, 2 days, whatever, based on what the time frame is. Let me give you a good example that metaphorically makes complete sense. And so you travel, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
You ever
All the
been in
time.
an airport? You ever been in an airport and the guy gets on the ticket agent, could be a woman, gets on the loudspeaker, the microphone, says, your flight is going to be delayed. That's all I know. Okay. Right? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
The stress goes up. Oh my God, am I going to make my connection? Am I going to get home in time for dinner? Whatever. But what if that person said, I apologize, the flight is being delayed. I don't have any information right now, but I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Every 10 minutes, I'm going to make an announcement as to what I know. So you don't need to come up here. You don't need to worry. Just hang out and I'll get back to you in 10 minutes. What happens to your stress level? You feel like you've got some sense of control, even though it's in completely somebody else's control, right?
Yeah.
But they're giving you the information on a regular, ongoing basis that is making you happy. It's frequent enough. So that's the difference. And I think, you may not be able to deliver at the same level, but you can make up for it in other areas by giving good information, by keeping that relationship going to go. Because at the end of the day, you even said it earlier, even though you're doing business with a company, it's somebody in the company. People do business with people. When somebody says, I love doing business with them, they're not referring to the name of the company. They're referring to the people who work for the name of that company.
Yeah. Yeah. I read with interest. It was only just this week, I think, your article in Forbes magazine about the 5 powerful ideas to
Yes.
help you and your customers in times of crisis. And I know our listeners will be again eager to hear your words of wisdom on this. Could you talk us through those 5
Sure.
ideas that
I'll do it.
that you
I'll
came
do it
through?
real quickly here. And I actually have the article up because this is like the most requested question I have. Number one, be a beacon of hope and optimism. There's a lot to be afraid of and a lot to be concerned with, but there's a lot to be, optimistic about. Everybody says this too will pass, but you know what? That's great, and I'm okay with that. But let's give people a light at the end of the tunnel. And as leaders and managers, we need to be able to do that. And as people in general, who do you want to be around? Somebody that says, "Oh my God, it's the end of the world," or hey, we're going to be stronger when this is over, and we're doing things to prove it. You and I are today doing something to prove that. Number two, offer alternatives. There's many different ways that we can be doing business with customers, and we're learning those ways now. We may not be able to make that sales call, but we can jump on a Zoom call. We might not be able to get on an airplane. I don't get to do right now. I'm doing speeches from a chair in my office, and
Yeah.
that's an alternative. I have a friend of mine who had a small restaurant, went and got his restaurant rezoned as a food market. So now people can come in and buy items, not just because otherwise he was shut down from selling food and people sitting at his restaurant and having lunch.
Sure.
Number three, I already mentioned stay connected. There's lots of ways to do that. Number four is, and this is a great one, next time plan ahead. Well, we did plan ahead. Well, I don't think you planned for a worldwide pandemic. Okay. Maybe you did. Okay. But,
You'd be the
but
only one.
right. But I want you to think about this. Whatever you thought you were planning for emergencies, this is probably one that will be bigger than most. Okay. We didn't see it coming. It hit us like a brick wall. It's not like a recession that you can spot maybe a year ahead. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and you start to plan for these things. So now that you know about this doomsday scenario, I think you should be planning on what happens if it doesn't end in 30 days. So let's put it into a biblical reference. Noah built the ark before the flood. Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
keep that in mind. And finally, number 5, forget about. I mean, you used to have something, you don't have it anymore. Stop complaining about it, because complaining about it's not going to bring it back right now. And maybe there's things in the future that you don't have. So be grateful for what you have right now. And that is the opportunity to communicate like we're communicating, the technologies that we're adapting and adopting that were out there that we didn't use before. Like I said earlier, we're going to see this growth, adoption of technology that might have taken 3 to 5 years, all in a span of 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot to be thankful for right now. So be grateful for what you have.
Yeah. No, I loved it when I read it, and I think just the optimism to take from it, and also the opportunity out of it. You'd probably have been busy today, maybe traveling the country, the world, maybe on stage, but we got this opportunity because of this. So out of a crisis, out of where there's problems, there is opportunities that we need to look to grasp out of as well. And as we move to the end, Shep, I've got 3 very quick questions just
All
to
right.
really understand, understand Shep and who he is. But I'd really like to know your biggest influence in your career. Have you had any people that you've looked up to, and why that person?
Sure. There are many mentors in my world. Many of them are mentors through books that I read. But one gentleman, Bud Dietrich, was one of my mentors. He passed away a few years ago in his 90s. But I remember him taking me aside when I was just getting into my business back in 1983, when it all started. And he said, Shep, if you want to be successful, recognize. And I wanted to be a speaker on customer service and customer experience. He says, the job's not doing the speech, it's getting the speech. And because of that, I had a work ethic that was all driven about building relationships with clients, getting them to want to hire me instead of just work. And that was a great one. And then friends and people like that. So customer service heroes, if you will.
Yeah.
Tom Peters, reading his work, Jan Carlson, reading his work. And I've had a great chance, never really talked to Jan Carlson at great depth. Tom Peters, I've had some conversations with. Horst Schultz, the first president and co-founder of the Ritz-Carlton chain.
Yeah.
In the last couple of years, I've gotten to talk to him a couple of times and pick his brain. These are people that we need. I'd love to sit in a room with Jeff Bezos. He's a mentor because I read his, what he believes in. And so, but those are some of those. Yeah.
Yeah,
People.
yeah, me too. All those names that you mentioned there, and read those books too. And I am a keen reader. I've soaked up many of your books. Actually, I haven't read. I think it was your most recent one, The Convenience Revolution. So I need to
Yeah.
do that. But
The convenience revolution. And just 2 weeks ago, worst time ever to come out with a book was the re-release of Cult of the Customer, which had all new stats and facts and updated stories, and that just came out. But the convenience revolution is probably my best work in that it's very forward thinking. All things being equal, good service, good product, the easier to do business with company wins.
what about? I mean, you've mentioned Jan Carlson or Tom Peters. What other author, what other book would you recommend for others to look up?
My favorite book of all time is The Experience Economy by Jim Gilmore and Joe Pine.
Right.
It's about what we're talking about, customer experience and service. I mean, how do you take a commodity like a coffee bean and charge 10 times more than some other people do for it? And that's what Starbucks does.
And finally, again, we may have covered this as well, but what advice would you give to all those business owners or people sat within business decision makers trying to survive this current coronavirus crisis? Is there any words of wisdom, Shep, that you'd like to pass through to them?
Sure. I guess, I mean, I think it's more motivational than anything. I would say that, you know, remember the good old days. And the good old days were 2 months ago. Here in the US, we're arguing Republicans and Democrats, who's right, who's wrong. We're complaining about traffic. I'm disappointed that I didn't get my free upgrade on my flight to wherever I was going. Those were the good old days. I would love to be able to complaining about not get my upgrade and having to eat airplane food because my flight or airport food because my flight's 2 hours delayed. That would be a wonderful problem to have again. And you know what's going to be great is we're going to have those problems again, hopefully in the very near future. It's a reason to be optimistic, and it's a reason to be thankful for what we've always had. So I would say that's not so much a business advice as much as a philosophy. If you really want to think about what the big scheme of things is, this is going to be a blip. It's a tough one. But we need to, it's just, that's the way it is. And we need to take a look at it and be thankful for what we have. And let's get back to those good old days as quickly as we can.
Well, what can I say? What better way to end, the discussion today? And Shep, I need to thank you again because, I've been reading your books, I've been watching you from afar, but it's with the great pleasure that I've had to be able to pose these questions to you, and especially in this time of business turmoil, for you to share your thoughts on that as well. So let me thank you again.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you so much for this great conversation that we had. It was wonderful.
No, not at all, Shep. And so much appreciated. You look after yourself. Stay safe.
You do the same. Stay safe. And stay healthy.
Yeah, and
stay germ free. Have a very Lysol day.
Keep washing those hands, and we'll we'll stay safe. But no, we'll stay in touch. So thank you very much, Shep.
Thank you very much.